Hey, so before the video starts, you should know that it's a little bit quiet in this one because the audio just didn't record properly. So you might want to turn it up a little bit before beginning. Okay, what's up everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you how to build a 6x6 nuclear cube. So this is a small area, smallest area. Copied it from this huge thing that I built a long time ago. Just made it way smaller. So it's in a 6x6 area, the whole thing fits. You can put walls around it and nothing will stick out, except for this factory at the back here. So the one thing you got to worry about is that this will stick out a little bit at the back, but I don't think that's a problem. So yeah, you can just take the conveyor belt anyways. It is totally good. So you're going to need to find an area that has 180 limestone, 90 coal, 80 sulfur, 150 uranium, 60 deuterium, 80 water, 90 iron, and 80 or more copper ore. I'll talk about that in a minute. So just if you want to pause here and look at this. So you're going to want to build this in an area that has all these materials near it, so it's easier to belt or pipe everything over to the main contraption. So that's why I'm showing you this list. And here are the main resources that you're actually going to need to construct this entire building. So you need 24 power crystals for this specifically. Like, that's probably the hardest part, but if you build it exactly to my design, you need 45 iron rods, 42 iron plates, 460 concrete, 168 steel beams, 197 cable, 55 motors, 30 heavy modular frames, 100 aluminum casings, 10 radio control units, 24 power shards, 10 encased industrial beams, 36 steel pipe, 73 copper sheets, 24 wire, 10 modular frames, 32 rotors, 72 plastic, 50 reinforced iron plates, 6 high-speed connectors, 9 rubber, 384 aluminum sheets in total, and 1 AI limiter. So you will need no alternate recipes for this factory, however you will need to unlock all the way through the Deuterium research chain to unlock either the smart splitter or the Mach 10 power pole. Both of those are used in this design. However, you do not need to use the Mach 10 power pole if you do not want to. The reason we need 80 plus copper ore is that these two smelters do not take the same amount in both, so this is at a different clock speed than this guy. And so if you just split them with a normal splitter, it wouldn't split properly, and so you'd have an unequal amount of copper ore going into the smelters, which would equalize eventually, but we wouldn't be 100% efficient yet. So this machine will produce enough fuel for 5 nuclear reactors, so 5 individual nuclear reactors, and it will also produce 25 encased uranium cells per minute as leftover, which you can throw into an awesome sink if you would like. In Update 6, you'll be able to create nuclear obelisks with encased uranium cells, so this machine will also help with those if you need extra. So this machine is 6x6 and 5 high, but if you want to include the machines at the top, it's going to be 8 high. So let's get started. So first we want to put in our floors, or just so we know where our floors are. So we can take these out, because we only need 5. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to mirror it perfectly. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 3 walls up, we can put down, that's 1, 2, and 3. Put down one of these, and then 2 floors up, we can put down one of these. So now, we're going to want to delete these walls here, just make room for everything else. Take a foundry, and line it up right here. You see how the white borders are aligned with the tile? We'll build it like that. And now we take our smelters and you put them one in so they're not sticking out of the tile like that. And 1, 2, 3. Our next step is to align the refinery. So if we want to take it all the way to the edge, you see it lines up there, and then we go 1, 2 over, and we place it down. So it's also aligned on this edge tile if you want to do that. Our next objective is to get this blender in, one of the bigger components in the factory. And so you want to push it directly next to this refinery, just as close as you can get it. So you see that little green line in the bottom there? You want to keep that. You want to keep that there. And you should get this guy, where there's almost no space. That's exactly how you want it. And just remember to connect this with either a pipeline 1 or a pipeline 2. They will both work. Pipeline Mach 2 just looks better. So I would rather do that. The next thing we want to do is begin our first constructors. So if we enter here, we can get one constructor right here, which is 1 over aligned with this furnace. So right here, and then right here. So you want those two. It should look like this right now. Next thing we want to do is put in the biggest component, which is going to be the manufacturer, and it's going to be making all of the uranium fuel cells for our nuclear reactors. So if you line it up with that edge tile there on the very left-hand side, and we push it all the way back to here, and when it turns red and the floor is too steep, you don't do that. You just take it one back, and then you put it there. So it should be looking like this, where this edge tile is just barely hanging on, and then this is sticking a little bit over. Our next move is to insert the concrete constructors on this side. So you're going to want to line them up with the edge of the tile and the manufacturer, so just slide them 1 over like that, right here. So your factory should look something like this right now. The next step is to install the storage container for our encased uranium cells so they don't overflow when they're heading into the manufacturer. So you want to push this right into the manufacturer, just get it as close as possible right there. So now we install all of our mergers and splitters and smart splitters, all of these conveyor things here. So the first one we're going to install is in between this storage container and this blender here. So you're going to want to have it at the output facing you here, so you can create like a L shape with your conveyors. The first conveyor merger is going to go right there. And then in between here, you're going to put a smart splitter, the only smart splitter in this design. So make sure it's facing this way. And you're going to put it right here. So in case you didn't see that, a good way to space it is just go right in here and make sure there's like one conveyor merger gap in between. So you could fit one in between. So now, if we configure the smart splitter, what you're going to want to do, before you forget, is select none for left. In the center, you're going to want to put the encased uranium cells. And then on the right, you want to put overflow. And so close that out, and then open it again just to make sure that's stuck, because sometimes these just reset for no reason. So you have to be careful there. If that's set, then you're good to go. The next conveyor merger is going to be set right in front of this constructor here. So I'm standing on top of this constructor, and I move it not in the yellow, but right here, and the output is facing to my left. Put that in there, and that's good. The next one is going to be a conveyor splitter going from this guy, but it's going to be overlapping its clearance with this constructor. So you're going to want to put it right there. So make sure you have some space in between this one, but it's clipping into this guy. So our last splitter is going to be placed in front of a furnace, splitting into these two constructors. But what's important is that it has to line up with this belt right here. So we're going to run this around with a temporary belt. Destroy this support, just in case we forget. And then here, conveyor splitter, make sure the entrance point is facing the furnace, and you're going to drag it all the way into this conveyor belt so it's facing like that. and then we can remove the temporary conveyor belt so we have the position correct. So now that all the machines on floor 1 are complete, we now start with the recipe construction. So both of these constructors here are going to be set to overclocked by 200% on concrete. So this is where your concrete's going to head in. So now it's on to the furnaces. So furnace 1 here, I'm going to start from the back. So this is going to be making regular steel ingots at 200% clock. So this next furnace is going to be making deuterium ingots, and a neat little trick for this is if you want to put in these crystals, and you can actually tap down here, and you want to make this have 20 deuterium ingots per minute, just press enter, and it'll automatically set the type you want. And you can just take out the excess power crystals, and there you go, it'll make the perfect amount. And so using that trick again, we can go in, place down 2 of these, and change the 30 to a 50. And then this will be copper at 50 per minute. And this next smelter will also be copper at 30 per minute. So copper at 50 and copper at 30. This refinery, on the other hand, is going to have sulfuric acid, but it needs to produce 80 sulfuric acid because of our overclock that's going to happen on the next machine, on the blender. So we have 160% clock, 80 per minute of sulfuric acid. So now over at the blender, we have our encased uranium cells. So we're going to want to be making. And if we change this to 200% clock, we'll be needing 80 sulfuric acid, but we'll also be producing 50 encased uranium cells. These 2 constructors here in the middle are both going to be set to wire, and so this is going to be taken up to a different floor to be processed. And so the last machine is the manufacturer that we're going to set here, and so you want to set it to make uranium fuel rods and then overclock it all the way, so it's making 1 per minute, and that's going to feed 5 reactors. Alright, so now we begin the belt work. So this is a little bit tricky, as a lot of things are going to be sent to different floors. But first of all, we can figure out where this is going to go. So first off, all of this can be fixed here. We make a little Y from this smelter. It's making 30, and these are both 15s. So this will be fine. Now we can take from this concrete machine, belt it all the way over past this guy, so just like the temporary belt, and then just connect it to this first piece right there of the blender. And then while we're at the blender, we can take this piece out, which is going to be the uranium. There we go. So this is going to come all the way out to right here, and we destroy the belt, because there's also a separate splitter over here. So once you have this conveyor pole here, just make sure it's still on the grid, because this is just extra. It's not part of the 6x6. You're going to want to put in the last splitter right here. And so it's going to come in, center it right on this line here of the glass, if you want to build out of glass or whatever you want to build out of. And this is going to be what the uranium conveyor belt looks like, which is going to take it in the blender. Alright, the next thing you want to connect is right back here, this conveyor belt. Here, here, and then one last one there. And then make sure this is connected. I think we connected this previously. So make sure that's connected, and also make sure that this is connected right here to this splitter. So we're not going to do anything with this yet, because it's going to go into the ceiling. So if you want to make this look nice as well, you can take a conveyor pole here, and connect this to the conveyor pole, and then to the merger. That one as well, and then there you go. So it should look something like this, which is all down here, all this crazy stuff. So this will get a lot more bulky as time goes on. There'll be a lot of stuff in this area as we build the second floor. So the last thing on the first floor is going to be the power poles that we're going to connect all later. And you're going to want to use the power pole Mach 3 because that will be the most efficient version. We will only have to use 3 power poles in this entire factory. So, these two. That's all we'll need to do for now. And then we can also run this out here. This power pole will be the power pole that you power to run power to this entire facility here. So, starting with the second floor, we got our belt work, we got our recipes, we got everything done, splitters, splitters, constructors, everything done. So now, you just want to zoop all of this foundation across, and across, and across. And so this is what your finished second floor should look like, is it's just sort of clipping through the top of this guy, going through all this, and so we base this off our first floor that we put in here. So just remember it's 3 tiles up and then on that tile. But now we will begin placing the machines on the second floor. Okay, so the first thing we can do here is on the second floor we can take this blender and push it up against the wall again, and then bring it back to this tile right here. And this is colliding with the other blender. We need to push it 2 tiles back, and then place it down. This is very specific that you do it in this order, just to make sure that this blender can survive this area. So after we place in the blender, the first thing you're going to want to do is come over here and build an assembler. So we're going to have 3 assemblers on this floor. And we can stick it right to the edge here, and then just make sure it's at the same level as the edge of this blender here. And bring it all the way over to the edge, make sure it doesn't move forward, make sure you don't hang it off the edge. Make sure the white line is on the edge, and we can place it down there. So this will allow us, and if you want to double check, you can put a conveyor lift right here and it won't hang off the edge. So there you go. The next assembler we're going to place down is going to be right here. So it's going to be at an X with the first assembler and not clipping into either of these, not clipping into Blender. So you can line it up there, and it's going to be facing into the Blender. Just place it there. And a way to check is if this is like right in the middle there, a little bit to that side. And then you can place down the next one, press C, there you go. This one is conveniently right next to it. So now the only 2 constructors on this floor are going to be right behind these 2 assemblers, facing into the assemblers. So just make sure all your buildings are the right way. They're going to be lined up right on the edge, so be right before they turn red here. I'm going to put them right there. Make sure it's on the right-hand side of this assembler. And same with the other one. Just do the exact same thing. You can't press C because it'll line them up the wrong way. Just line them up right there, so that little white bit is hanging out the side of this one. So lined up. There you go. And so now begins the tedious amount of belt work and recipes for this floor, especially the belt work, but we'll do the recipes first. So, on this blender, make encased uranium cells. And you just don't overclock this, because this is going to be recycling the extra sulfur that's going to come out of here. Quick editor's note here, I was wrong in this clip. This machine actually needs to be overclocked on electromagnetic control rods to 125%, so it's making 5 per minute. Alright, thank you very much. Back to the video. These 2 assemblers are going to be making our encased industrial beams on the one to the right, and the one to the left is going to be making all of our stators. If I can find them. Here we are. So no alternate recipes needed. Stators is going to be clocked to 150, And encased industrial beams is going to be set to half. So just make sure that's making 3, and this is making 7.5 down here. So these constructors are very special because they have really weird overclocks. So this is going to be 20, using the same trigger from earlier, 22.5 steel pipes. And then in steel beams, we're actually going to make it have 12 per minute. So 12 per minute steel beams, 22.5 per minute steel pipes. So now begins the process of belt work, which is so fun. Everybody loves it. So these two are going to be connected here. And we can add a splitter in the back here. And it should be aligned like this. So you can force these. And like that. Really good curve. So for this build, I will not be using conveyor floor holes because they would make this project so much harder, and it's just a lot easier to just run right through the floor. But if you want to, you can use these conveyor floor holes and pipe holes. Just do this. So, if you saw that, we're taking the foundry, taking a conveyor lift up top, across, and into these two steel machines. Starting our pipe work, along with the belt work, we're going to come over here to the blender and use a pipeline support, line it up all the way at the end here in the back. At the end 1, 2, and 3, so it should be vaguely in the middle of this area, and then bring it all the way up as it can go. But to align our next pipe, we're actually going to have to go to the floor below to work on even more stuff. So remember this conveyor splitter here. So this is where the uranium goes. So we're going to have to bring this up to the second floor. So first of all, we're going to have a conveyor lift here. It's going to go 1 and 2 above. Now that the conveyor lift is set, we go over here, and then we can come to the middle of this tile. Make sure to line it up with that belt there. Come to the middle of this tile on that line and then push it 1 over. And build 1, 2, like this. So this is going to allow us to make a nice curve coming out of this conveyor lifter. And it's going to set up the curve here. So now, back on the second floor, we can take this conveyor lift from this blender down here, run it to the level of this conveyor belt, and then make a nice curve all the way over there. So that's going to be going through the floor, and then now we can set up our pipeline. It's going to be a pipeline support right here, running all the way. Now we can connect our pipes. So I'm using pipeline Mach 2. It should work with Mach 1, but I'm just making the curve here nice. So if you want to set this to auto, that would be probably the best way for this pipe. So now after we've built that pipe, you're going to want to come over here to the end of the blender and connect it to there. You see, if we use auto, we're blocking this exit point, which is going to be our extra encased uranium cells. So we need to set this all the way to horizontal to vertical, and we can plug it in, and this will help us to keep this hole. Now comes the tricky part, where we need to set this pipe up to link everything together. So set it back to auto. Do that. We can take this pipeline junction cross and line it up as best we can, because it just doesn't snap, and flip it upwards. And so once it's flipped upwards and lined up with this pipe, build it, and then get rid of this temporary pipe here. So for this pipe, make sure to set your pipe back to auto. That, and that. And that is how we're going to run this pipe. Opening up the floor here for a second, so we can see. we can take this pipe and run it into the floor. And just to make sure the liquid doesn't get confused, we need to put a pipe right there. And then come all the way to the other end right here. And then put a pump on the other end. So this should make sure that the sulfur doesn't do anything crazy when it's running around here. And if you really want to be extra sure about it, you can put a one-way valve here. But I do not think that's necessary, so up to you. So the first floor is about to get super confusing as we lower this lift through the floor to pick up our concrete. So just don't drop it any further than it needs to be. Just put it all the way up in the ceiling and face it that way. We take another conveyor lift. From this vantage point on the manufacturer, we can grab our conveyor lift, attach it, don't clip into the ceiling, you want it here, which will line up. Then you can attach it all the way over there. That is our blender almost done. The next thing we need to do. So that is our blender almost done. The last thing we need to do here is take this exit point that we kept unblocked, take it through the floor here, make sure don't drop it down, just keep it right there. And then we can attach from all the way over here, right here, almost to the ceiling. And we take it and run it all the way through here. Now, coming back behind here, behind the blender, we have the assembler that still needs to be put somewhere. So we can take it down to this level right here, and then run conveyor belts going right into here. And in these manufacturers back here, we want to have a conveyor lift, one here and one here. And we can just don't need to raise them at all. I mean, you could raise them if you wanted to, but it'll just add time to the process. So just keep them low to the ground, and there you go. So the last output that we need to deal with is going to be on the end of this assembler, and we're going to run it through the floor again. So drop down, dodge all the machinery. It's going to be clipping right through that belt, and then come down to right here. And we can plug in this right here. The same assembler that we just belted down to the manufacturer is going to need another belt right here on its entrance. So its second entrance by the beams. It's going to need a belt right here. Just make sure it doesn't clip into the ceiling. And then take this guy from the concrete. Make sure that, remember that splitter? You run him up. Don't clip into the ceiling. Run him up. And then across, barely dodging this power pole. And now this other assembler is going to take the wire that we had over here. So build a reverse conveyor belt here. We're going to bring their output up from this splitter, from this merger, shall I say. Bring it up, run it across, and now the belt is done. So our third and final floor only contains 3 machines, yet it still needs to be, so 3 by 4. So it's a lot smaller than the rest of the floors. That's 4. And there we go. The first machine we need to put on the second floor is actually going to be the assembler. So we'll take that from the floor below, and then line it up on the edge here. Make sure it's on both the edges. Line it up like that. The next machines, and the last machines we need to line up, are going to be constructors, which we can steal from the floor below again, to build up here. So we're going to take this, have it at an X, turn it, so it's facing this way, and then 1, 2. So make sure it's 2 away from this assembler, and then push it all the way back to the edge, and place it down. It should look like this. And so now begins the recipes. So this is the most overclocked. So you need copper sheets and quick wire. So quick wire is going to be set to make 100 per minute, and copper sheets just overclock it all the way, 250%. And this last guy is just going to be making AI limiters. You know you've placed your machines correctly if you are now able to start the belt work by making a weird S-curve from this constructor to this assembler. And that, it's all good. And then we can make it look nice. This belt there. So I actually will be using... So for the next part of the belt work, I actually will be using conveyor floor holes just as a temporary piece to be able to put in these conveyors, because they're a lot more simple when you can put them in like this. However, if I could just destroy this and move it closer and then move this back. That could also work, but then we can remove these foundations later. We now want to take the copper one down. So this is going to be colliding right here. Assuming same level as that one. And then the same objective for this guy right here. So just make sure when you put these down that the arrows are facing into the conveyor belt. And if they are not, and you're using the conveyor floor holes, you need to make sure these arrows on the top are facing out first, and then you can take it down. Now we finally get to use this copper, bring it up, turn it, we can belt it across, and then we can use this deuterium, bring it up, and belt it across. So now we can belt it across. And then the last part is bringing this up to the same level and belting that through. Once that belt is done, there's one very important step that we need to take to finish this whole thing. So if you see right down here, in between, line this up to the edge, take it one back, and make sure that the arrows are facing inwards, so you're building a reverse conveyor belt. So build it right there, and then take it two up here. So 1, 2, reverse conveyor. And then you're going to come all the way over here. And so remember, this splitter that we built on the first floor, the smart splitter, is going to take the overflow. So the overflow here, you're going to want to bring up by 1, 2, and then take it all the way over here. And so this will now get rid of your extra uranium cells. And so the last thing we need to do is power this whole factory. So, putting one power pole up here, it should be in the same location. Just remember, it's in the middle of this 4x4 on the edge next to this constructor. If we bring the power down, we should find that it is directly underneath, directly above, shall we say, this power pole here. So it won't interfere with anything. And then if we want to add this to our grid so we can see what we're powering, if we want to climb into the mess, the chaos that is layer 1, we can get our power pole and start turning things on. So make sure to power your smelters first. This should also deal with your refinery and not your blender. It should be concrete. And you can use this to power everything else. So make sure to power, especially your manufacturer, but make sure you don't forget about these pumps. It's very important that you power these, even though they're not buildings, they still require power, and it's very important that they get it. Otherwise, they will not pump anything to the rest of your facility. So, on the top here, we have this power pole, which we can connect here, here, and here to these machines, to these assemblers, to this blender, to these constructors, 1 and 2, to this pump, and also you can connect the power here, so this blender can be powered from below here by this power pole that's hiding from me. So that would be the easiest way to power everything. There should be 10, 10, and 7 on your power poles, and that's how you know you've connected everything. If they're not, okay. And also, just looking around, we don't see any red lights. It means all the recipes are in and everything has power. And that is your finished nuclear factory. So this will only take 363 volts from your entire power system, but it will make nuclear power so much easier because it's just a small little setup like this. Hey, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry this one's been a bit long. I know it's pushing 30 minutes at this point. Editing this for 3 hours and listening to myself say the word "so" that much was getting really annoying, so I'm glad it's over too. And I just said "so" again. I'm going to try to take that out of my vocabulary as soon as possible. Anyways, this has been Catalyst. Have a good one. Wait, before you click off, this machine makes enough nuclear fuel rods for 5 nuclear reactors. So how are you supposed to split up that line effectively and efficiently? So this is the 5-way splitter. I can't take credit for it. It was designed forever ago. But this will split all your nuclear rods 5 ways. And so if I just add here, see it will split my turbo motors in 5 ways. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's all of them. So this will evenly split everything. I'll just feed back in, just enter it through this Conveyor merger, Conveyor splitter, and then these are both splitters. So one merger before the splitter, it all goes in. I mean, I don't think I have to do a tutorial for this one. It's pretty simple.